they're typically.
Ron
labeled.
Giovanacci
Yeah, he
said
said
the
it.
fire departments all over use the terms interchangeably.
Yeah, but
Except that a rescue
they're not the
vehicle
same.
transports a patient, which makes it an ambulance class vehicle. But it also has the capability to rescue someone if there's a fire situation.
There are
So
other
it's
things
dual
that it can do.
purpose.
It does other things.
You can throw it,
So like
the
saying,
rescue
is an
vehicle
SUV
only
a
needs
car?
to have
Yeah.
drawers
Is
of
it a
light. No,
sports
it's
utility
drawers of
vehicle?
light.
So what we're looking at getting for the 40,000, is it solely an ambulance or is it a rescue
It's a
vehicle?
rescue.
It's a fire
It can do
specific
both.
rescue.
It's a rescue
Carries
vehicle
additional
that can
equipment.
also transport.
You don't think it's a rescue
I
vehicle?
do think it's a rescue
Yeah.
vehicle.
So it does both?
The only reason for talking about the 220,000 versus the 40 is to let people see that
That's okay.
it's an
We can put it-
efficiency kind
Yeah.
of thing. We found a better deal.
I took the wording and I just tried to make the wording flow better.
I
And
think
so
it-
I'm not saying, I wasn't saying you have to do it or not do it, but I think it flows better and explains it quite well.
So one says 240, Kelly, your version. It was previously 240, and this one says 220.
Oops.
Yeah, there is a difference.
Oh,
Which is,
thank you.
Kelly says 240 and version 2.1 says 220.
It's 240, that's why we changed it.
Has the chief had input into this article, and particularly into the description of the vehicle?
Yes.
And her
She-
description was fire rescue vehicle?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I personally object to changing it to ambulance.
Okay, that's a simple thing to explain at the, somebody's gonna get up and say something about it, FinCom. I don't think there's anything wrong with the wording, Dick, I'm not sure we need to change it, that's where we're at now.
There are gonna be people in the audience, in my opinion, that are gonna act like there's a red flag in front of their face when you use the word ambulance.
I think we're being dishonest. If you listen to everything that was said last night, it was an ambulance. If you listened to it the night before, it was an ambulance. Everybody knows it's an ambulance. The bill that we saw, the minutes that we talk about, it has always been ambulance. I think anything less than that is dishonest.
So could it be,
I'll leave it at that.
could it be said at the meeting, just, for reference, a rescue vehicle serves primarily as an ambulance, but carries additional equipment for additional fire-specific services that may be needed, and hence the term rescue.
You mean for the FinCom to say those words?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can say those words.
Yeah.
Putting it this way is dishonest to the public.
Well,
And there's enough of them that
Now we're
know.
going the wrong way.
There's enough of them that
You wanna
know what's
see it
going
one
on.
way, you have an opinion of a choice.
Yeah,
Bring
that's it.
Yeah, but don't bring in dishonesty. There's no one doing anything dishonest here, Mr. Camp. That's unnecessary and changes the tone.
I'm not saying,
We heard your suggestion, thank you. In the spirit of the other one, we're gonna defer votes until Monday night. Mr. Gant certainly has the right to bring up a motion on Monday night to amend this. For the time being, we'll leave it as recommended by the chief with the words fire rescue vehicle. Other than that, is everybody okay with the other suggested changes?
and it is 240.
I'll just replace
Yeah.
my language with Dick's language and add 240. That's all I'll do. I'll just cut out the other description.
21st. Again, we'll get into detail on tomorrow about school things, but we should, but let's, if people are comfortable, assuming for purposes of today's review that this remains, is everybody okay with wording, or does anybody have any suggested changes to the description of the wording?
I think the key positive in this is the sentence besides the unthinkable crisis scenario.
It's been done.
I think that's a really important sentence that goes much more
We
beyond.
need to have one person talking at a time, please. I'm sorry, John, I couldn't hear you.
I just want to affirm the value of that sentence that begins 6 lines down in the italicized part. Besides the unthinkable crisis scenario, there are all daily operational considerations that In fact, in 99.99% of situations, the value it provides in those kinds of things is worth it alone, let alone for the unthinkable prices. So I appreciate seeing that in there.
So do we have any proposed changes, or are they in there, or what are we doing? 21.
Just looking at that last sentence and Dick's change, whether his sentence makes it a little more succinct only because we have mentioned, I think, the other uses for the system. So I like saying that Boxford and Middleton have recently installed these systems. And I think we've already said all the different ways that you can utilize them. I'm not sure we need to repeat it again. But
Could I read my suggestion? Are you reading it all right, or do you want me to read it? It's easier for me when I read it without markup for me.
No, go ahead.
Go.
Should I? Okay. This article funds the purchase and installation of a surveillance and security system, of a surveillance and security systems, that's wrong, systems for Stewart and Proctor Elementary Schools. A video surveillance system is one part of a comprehensive crisis plan that includes infrastructure, parentheses, control entry, video surveillance, close parentheses, real-time communications, and training and drilling with students, staff, and public safety. Topsfield Elementary Schools do not have an active surveillance system. This system would be used in the event of a crisis, but also for daily operations including visitor maintenance, after-hours incidents, vandalism, theft, prevention, non-custodial parent issues, traffic control, and external interactions, period. Boxford and Middleton have recently installed these systems. Is that true? After last night, I'm not sure that it's true that they're installed. I think they're in the process of installing it at Fuller Meadows, and that Boxford is in the process of planning to do it.
so we should say
That's kind of what I
purchase.
heard too.
That's what I heard.
So I would say that it should be changed then to Middleton and Boxford are in the process of installing these.
Yeah.
In the process of, is that more accurate? I think that would be a better wording.
I do too.
And the point is still made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not recently installed, but in the process of installing.
That's fine.
Well, I'm just crossing this out, and I'm just gonna replace it with Dick's language.
Okay.
And eliminates your words of unthinkable
Exactly.
crisis scenario.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I just, we're getting to the,
Takes a little emotion out.
well, next year, I think that Mr. Dan should write the warrant, so that I don't have to waste my time on the explanations. With all due
22nd.
respect.
So what are we gonna do there on,
We'll put in Dick's
We did the change.
we did the change? Okay.
with, are in the process of installing.
22nd.
Oh, okay. After the, did you do, oh, you changed, okay. Oh, I included the word for building maintenance, because I think that's the intent, is for building maintenance.
It is.
Okay. In other words, it's not for cleaning and things like that, it's for building maintenance. So I'd add, after the word for in the warrant part, for building maintenance. Or building, yeah, okay, fine. And then, in the motion, it would also, you took the motion out. Oh, it's no action recommended. Okay, never mind. Nope, don't need that anymore. That's my only change on 22nd.
23rd.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did have another one on that, on the 22nd, it's a very small.
Good.
The roof repairs are to the Topsfield Library, not necessarily at the Topsfield Library. It's, maintenance and roof repairs to, oh, you did the change, I'm sorry, oop, that's fine, thank you, okay, oop, sorry.
Okay, 23rd,
23rd.
Any changes?
Oh, gender stabilization, okay, this,
Isn't this pretty much the same thing, just we changed the number?
it's free cash, isn't it? That was the issue. Did you fix that already?
We added
Gender
funds.
stabilization, what?
We added funds,
Did you fix it?
free cash funds. It looks like you wanted free cash.
Free cash
out.
funds, that's right, okay, that looks, oh, yeah, no. This article allows funds to be added, not free cash funds, it allows anything, not just free cash.
But the motion is from free cash. Or the
Yes, that is.
recommendation, the
But
recommendation.
this just says allows. If you wanna say this article,
Recommended that the town
Transfers
vote to
free cash,
transfer free
but
cash.
the point of it is that this article
It's transfers.
allows funds to be added.
So let's just change allows to transfers.
Yeah, okay, that's great. This article transfers free cash and take the word funds out. Great, good. Take funds out. This article transfers free cash to the town's financial reserves. That's the way I think, I think you want the word somehow added in there though, right, isn't that the concept?
Do we use
This
allows in
article-
others
Transfers free
to be
cash.
consistent?
Say again?
Do we use the word, that terminology allows in others?
In some cases, it is a matter of allows. If the word is allows, this article allows you to transfer funds. It allows you this article allows funds to be added. That it does, but if we're gonna fix it though, to be transfer, then it's, this article will transfer free cash
To the town's financial
to
reserves.
the town's
You
financial
don't need to
reserves.
be added.
You don't have to have it added in there, right, just, that's good. This article transfers free cash.
To the town's financial reserves.
Right. Great.
All set on 23rd?
Oh, yeah, did you take that one out? Oh, okay, and maybe appropriated by town meeting for any other, oh, you can put, okay. But it's kind of confusing. All right,
What, you just want Ann out?
I don't remember what.
If I was gonna do any of what I would do is I would underline and or bold
Oh, you
into
made the
and
change.
from.
Oh, yeah, I'm
That's
sorry.
the only difference between the one
You
is
fixed
into
it.
and one is from, and I think a little emphasis.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Kevin?
No, nothing makes sense to me right now.
I'm
It's
just
that
confused.
every
This is
vote
appropriate
is
monies
involved.
into this fund requires a majority vote, however, appropriate funds from this fund requires a 2/3 vote. The only differences between them are
Yeah.
majority and 2/3
Right.
and into from, and I'm saying if you just underlined into and from,
The only thing is we don't do that kind of.
We don't do
No, we don't do underline.
yes, we don't do
And the only
capitalize.
thing we want to do is make sure that
Read it
this one
clearly.
and the next one on that same subject are exactly compatible, the situations are the same. This article allows funds to be added to the town's financial reserves. Appropriation of monies into this fund require a majority vote.
I'm fine
She's
with
already
that.
changed it.
What's that? It's the same way both cases.
She's already got it changed.
Yeah,
That's good, I'm
Yeah.
fine.
All right, we on
okay,
24?
all right. We
Capital
got it.
stabilization fund.
We just did 20.
You just did that one?
23 is the one we did.
Okay, well, then now we don't have the same wording on 23 and 24, because on 23 you said this article transfers free cash, and on 24 you say the capitalization, recommendation, let's say,
Yeah,
this
so-
article allows funds to be added, so
Right,
you
so
want
we
to be
need to-
consistent.
We need to make it,
Yes,
that's right,
so
right on.
this goes to
Right on.
transfer.
So we already did 23, so let's make 24
Transfers.
consistent with 23.
Transfers funds to the towns.
My personal favorite, OPEB.
So just,
Yeah, so what-
Oh, sorry, I thought we did it. 24 is gonna be the same as 23, we already beat 23 today.
The only difference is, no, you're right, no, that's fine. The first sentence is different, the rest of it's the same.
Right? 25. All set?
Mhm.
26. nothing for nothing, but you know, do you remember, there were years when all we did was try and get rid of revolving funds, now they're all coming back.
I hear you. I think we constantly gotta be looking out for that.
You gotta watch out
Questioning.
for it, but it's a great vehicle for,
It's,
I know, but
unless you wanna have a special town meeting every other week, you know?
they can,
We
keep
they
an
can,
eye on it.
they can be insidious.
Yeah.
They
There
can,
Which
was
is-
a period of
which-
time,
yeah.
there was like a slush fund.
yeah.
And people
That's
thought
right.
that
Yeah.
they were like.
Oh, yeah.
Can I say,
It's gotta be for a very specific purpose,
Yeah.
and follow for
okay,
that.
And
So
not,
this
it's
is,
not more money than is needed, and,
We're,
Right.
this is, we're
we're on
on,
25.
on 25, I'm sorry.
26.
We're on 26
Oh,
now?
we're 25
26.
done?
Yes.
Yeah, on 26, I think that under the department receipt, it really would be receipts from the rental of the town hall. It's not from the use, the receipts are from the rental of the town hall. It's a
Not
suggestion.
everyone rents the town hall though, and that language was
So there's no other, if
Consistent.
they don't rent it, there's no receipt.
not necessarily, people use it without having to pay rent, but they
But there's-
might
but
have
there's
to
no
be able
money.
to
That's
use
your
it and then
word.
spend money
That's your
on.
word.
I think receipt implies someone's paying.
I'm sorry.
Receipt
Yes.
from the
From the
use
use,
of.
whether they're renting the hall or they're
Oh.
paying for
It implies they paid.
somebody who's taking out the trash or someone as a.
Receipts, I'm sorry. Receipts represents the money, yes.
so there.
I'm sorry. Yes, I got that.
The only word I'm still grappling with is programming, because I don't know what programming reflects, what cost would be incurring for programming. That's really general, and
How different is it from operating expenses, which is sort of general?
yeah,
Put and operating expenses and cross
Yeah,
off programming?
I would support that, if others do.
Say that one again?
On the end of the first box right here,
Yeah.
take out "and" programming and put the "and" in front of "and" operating expenses.
Oh, okay.
What?
Just take out the and programming.
And operating expenses. So, just a little one here, Kelly, that in the most current law, it's, this particular, the first column is referred to as now programs and activities. I think in the past it used to be, it was, the old law said purpose. I don't want to, we can live with the purpose as it is, but if you look at the new wording in the new in the updated law, it is programs and activities. So I just pointed out if there's a way maybe that we could change it here and not make a big deal
Well,
out of it.
remember, we're adding to the bylaw that already exists.
Yes, I know, that's what I'm saying, is there a
So
way
it would
that
have
we
to
can
be
easily
consistent
do
with
something?
whatever the bylaw already says. So whatever that is, I'll confirm it, and then we'll have to.
I'm
send
sure
it back.
okay. I just, yeah, but at some point we should perhaps update it to the new law. The second thing is that having read this, the wording in the law is unbelievably shall annually. Maybe I should talk to you about it at a break here with
No, everything, we're coming down.
It
to
says
the
to
wire.
establish an annual expenditure limit. Is that what you could talk about, Dick? It says annual right there.
Yes, the problem is not this, but the overall approach that we're using. And I like the overall approach we're using, but the law is not kind in this case. Yes, can I read, this is the third paragraph from the end in the legislation. So it's not this thing, it is this whole damn thing about revolving funds. And the only reason I know it, because I read it, is because of this thing. The city or town shall, on or before July 1st of each year, vote on the limit on the total amount that may be expended from each revolving fund established under this section.
So we have an article every year.
But
Becomes a consent
the
agenda.
good news is somehow KP has said you don't have to do it, but I don't see how they take that wording and tell us we don't have to do it.
But we have that here. For this year.
This is all right, this is not about this, it's just
Okay.
the revolving funds brought this up. Can we once again just check with?
I
Don't
already
we address
checked
the
with them.
revolving fund issue every year anyway?
Yes, we do, and last
Every
year we
one of them.
fixed it, so we don't have to, last year, if you look at last year's language, it says that you don't need, now that you've adopted it, it's in the bylaw, you don't have to vote it again, unless you're gonna change it.
But that's not what the law says. The way
Well,
I read it anyway.
yeah.
Next,
I'm not an
Let's
engineer.
not worry about that.
next.
That was 20, so we're all set on the public call?
Yes.
27?
On the public call, could I, did you change that increase to change? It says no.
I did not.
Okay, so it says, under the table, it says, and further, and then the third line down starts out with fiscal year to increase the same. The town meeting could increase or decrease the same, so I changed the word increase to change the same.
I'm fine with that. I mean, they may vote to keep it the same.
But on the, but no, but on the next part of it, it is to increase, because you're not gonna vote, I mean, you potentially could, but all of the wording in there, in the statute is increase. But then, for,
I only see one increase in the wording.
for that, there's only one thing that I did near the end here, and it says, in that same paragraph, it says, such limit for that current fiscal year. The reason I say that, because we have two fiscal years that we're talking about in the sentences above. So I thought that the way to clarify it was to add the word that current year, and then take out only. So you don't add any words, but you make it clearer, I think. So it reads, for that current fiscal year, or take any other action.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
In the second sentence, Dick?
This is at the last line, the last line is therefore, but the one above that, it says, in the middle, limit for that fiscal year only, which is fine, except we're talking about two fiscal years in the sentences above, the current fiscal year and the future one is prior, all that stuff. So, to make it clear, I said, for that current fiscal year, and then take out only.
Kelly, were you just saying we don't have to vote on it every year?
No, this has nothing to do with the votes.
This is just clarifying, and it makes
This
a
is
difference.
just clarifying the
I think we
language.
just go on from there, I think it's fine.
Well, it's saying we're going to vote on it every year, annually.
This is the special case that they've allowed, which never existed before. And that is to say that if we establish the $10,000 here, and Kelly brought this up at the FinCom last night even, if we get to January, 6 months into it, and we're collecting all kinds of money because everybody's renting it, do we have to stop and say, no, or you can keep renting it, but it doesn't go in there. It goes into no. You can come forward to the Board of Selectmen, rather, with the FinCom, can say, doing so well, it's more than, we're almost at 10,000 now, we'll now increase it to 20,000, but not forever.
The difference, Dick, is you can take in as much money as you want. We're talking about the expenditures.
Oh, sorry,
going
expenditures,
out.
yes.
And if we
yes,
find we're
absolutely.
bringing
I
in
mean, there's
20,
no cap on how big the
No,
fund
no,
can
these
be.
are- I'm
we'd
sorry,
be
I got
smart
it.
to turn it around and change things later if we get so much
That's
money
fine.
in, but I don't think it's
The
an
issue is that we're now paying bills for the cleaning person and that, and we're taking in $20,000, that's right, thank you, I wasn't thinking. We're taking in $20,000, but we're running out of money to pay we're running out of running room to pay the cleaning man because we're up to $999,000.
And we have that ability.
And so we have that, that's all that is saying, that's taking it out of the statute. Whether we have to have it in there, yeah, it's good to be in there, but it's in the statute.
Linda, you
But the only thing I'm trying to clarify
Okay,
is.
I just want to clarify what we're actually changing. So are we changing first the word increase to change, third line
Yep,
down?
that's one. And the second one is to change the phrase for that fiscal year
Give me change.
only to for that current fiscal year.
Okay, so I'm just adding the word current before fiscal.
That's right, and taking out only, because you don't need it anymore. And the only reason to do it is because you can have confusion as to, there's two different fiscal years that we're talking about in the
Yep.
first two sentences.
I think we're fine on
Are we done with 26 maybe? 27th, one more time, amend zoning bylaw. The planning board thing, making a correction.
Oh, I'm sorry, but also in that one, so the recommendation, oh my goodness, the recommendation for 26 should also be changed to, for the ensuing fiscal year, to change the same.
right here. This is the next to last dark line.
The motion.
This is, flip over to the other side, change, to change the same here.
Okay.
You see, Debbie, who that is?
Oh, yeah, okay, two changes, yeah.
Okay, onward and upward.
Now, do we really, does it really help to put in the explanation, this whole thing about what the new modernization and all that? All we're trying to do is do this law, we're allowed to do it. I think all we're trying to, we don't have to, we don't have to be overly wordy in this. This article would create a new revolving fund that would allow fees to be collected for the use of the public hall, to be deposited in the fund and expended without further appropriation. I mean, just in one sentence, you can tell just what it is that the objective of the explanation is to give a layman an understanding of what the heck this is doing. So my suggestion is, again, that wording, I think you have it in front of you marked up, but.
Yeah, I would just recommend, Kelly, that we put in his words. I don't have a
Just cut
problem.
it out.
Well, you just simplify this right
Simplify,
here. Because all
per
that,
Dick's comments.
all of this
Alright.
stuff is
I'm
already
crossing out.
in the warrant.
This article will create a new fund. blah, blah,
Just
blah.
so, yeah,
Done.
you got it, this is straightforward. Okay, 27.
You're not helping.
I'm sorry, I'm really
You're
frustrated.
not helping.
Article 27. I will not consider further discussion on 26.
Okay.
Article 27.
27, okay, so, this, that, it's really recognizing about certain special permits that they're doing. It doesn't, okay, so the way I have it read here is, this article updates the definition of special permit granting authority to recognize that certain special permits are granted by boards other than the planning board. I think that was the essence of what was going on here.
It's not how it was explained to me by the chairman of the planning board.
Was it?
It's not how it was explained.
Okay,
to me.
leave it the way it is then.
It was
Next,
explained to me that there was
Okay.
just an error, not
Okay.
specific.
next.
28.
Okay, now on the, but in the recommendation, we should add, as we always do, Article 28 in the warrant.
Where are you?
It
That's
says
the
in the
recommendation
warrant.
for that same.
This says in the warrant.
Oh, it's been added,
27,
I'm sorry,
or
oops, no,
28.
maybe it's been added, okay. Some of my things have been added, okay. Okay, great.
Or 28 in the warrant, you're talking about on page 12 of 19. Article 28 in the warrant.
28, yeah, in the warrant, right.
This is the recommended for Article 28. And it's the bolded, recommend the town vote to amend. And it's just adding the word in the warrant
You're right.
after the words 28. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's consistent with what we always do.
See it right, right there, where my thumb is?
Oh, you're on page 12?
Page 12,
Got it.
that's the recommendation, and it just makes it consistent with
Yep.
27, which is
Yep.
fine. Okay?
That was 28, right?
That is 28, yep.
29, please. Local meal excise. No, it shouldn't say the word tax there, there's a reason it doesn't say the word tax. After excise.
I don't know the legal ease, Kelly, is that
Yeah.
the legal
The reason it
term?
doesn't say excess tax, I don't
Local
care when we do
meals
that.
excise.
No, it doesn't, no, it does, just use the wording from Master General Law.
That works.
Okay.
I think actually Dick's changes are incorporated.
So if you're ready to roll on 29 then, we're all set?
Or about. You have about, Dick, instead of approximately. In the description, fourth line down.
This new tax would provide an additional $50,000 annual, okay. Yeah, okay, never mind. I thought it was,
I
It's
would
additional,
change
yeah, to-
an estimated as opposed to approximately, but that's,
yeah, keep the wording as simple as possible.
Splitting
You
hairs.
want
yeah,
estimated?
I agree. That's,
An estimated?
I'd say an estimated 50,000.
That's good.
You have that, Deb?
Yeah.
30, Commission on Disabilities. Anything?
Weren't there some places that, wasn't there some place, or maybe it was in some place that said Disabilities Commission, we fixed that, wherever it was?
An estimated,
What the heck was that?
we'll provide an estimated
Maybe it's down
She did change it.
here. Oh, it's in the expression, okay. And it's changed in the.
She got it changed.
Commission on
Commission on
Disabilities, great, okay,
Disabilities.
okay.
Knowledge.
okay.
31st,
Can I just go back, Dick, you had, as a condition of the grant, you added that last sentence
Yeah.
in the description. How does everyone feel about that?
This is the 5 members. Oh, 5 members appointed. I don't think you need, it's not, it's a nit, but I don't think you need the words who are. Five, consists of 5 members appointed by the Board of Selectmen. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's just nicer English.
But then you added another
So
sentence.
that's for discussion, if we want to put that in there, because it may not be necessary. At that point, I thought the only reason that it was in there was because of that. And if that's the case, I would potentially put it in there. I just want to put it down as a suggestion. It's up to us what we're going to do with it.
I wouldn't add it personally.
I don't see as it adds a heck of a lot.
31st,
Great.
all okay on
Oh,
31?
do we put dashes in all those things? Special education fund, out of district, do we put dashes in there?
I don't think we got that far when we were
Okay,
doing where
so
they
it's just references to out of district. If you look at any of
dash.
the standard things, they're always out dash of dash district. It's in the legislation, everything, it's always done as a hyphenated word, so to speak.
We didn't get this far when we were doing revisions.
So any of the occurrences of out of district should be in that mode.
That's good.
Deb, look at these two right here, up top.
Yep, yep.
32nd,
Oh, and then after, what happened to tuition there?
We had a comma.
Okay, we added a comma after tuition, district, is it in there now, whatever, okay.
No, I'll add it.
Okay, add it, okay, and then if you do it there, you may have to do it down in
Yeah.
the recommendation too then. Okay, done.
32nd,
Oh,
animals.
oh, I'm sorry, but isn't there some consistency, don't we have to put a colon after, of? Oh, payment of, and then, yeah, I think in the recommendation, the right way to write that is, payments of, and since there's a number of them listed here, I would say, this is the third line down, begins payments of, that needs a semicolon, because now we have a list of things that we're putting in, and then we go into the provide. I think, I would add a semicolon after the word of.
I would not add a semicolon, because it's not perfectly a semicolon. It could be a colon, but it's it's perfectly good English without it.
It's perfectly good English without it, it's just for clarity that I would add, offer.
I'm okay with it the way it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with them. 32nd, exotic or wild animals.
It is what it is, you can't say much about
Can't do
that.
much on that.
Addictive. Oh, no, he's the next one, 33. Sorry, nothing to 32.
Dick wants
The
to,
only question,
Dick wants to change this to
the
this.
only question I had on this, and
We're laughing because she said you wanted to change the citizens.
No, 33, that's, the
33.
citizen petition 33 he wants to change,
I just wanna make it
the
clear,
description.
are we clear that we're leaving, the N is non-human primates, we've got this, we don't need semicolons or dashes.
We do have a dash in there,
I know,
non-human.
that's an important one.
my,
We don't want anyone to go astray on N.
my only question on 32, under 4, exemptions. It just looks awkward, and maybe we just have to leave it this way. Provisions of _-3 should not apply to. That is the way it's gonna appear, just like this, and that's the way we have to do it.
That's exactly how they refer to the paragraph above, because
Because
underscore hyphen
it's
three.
So
So
we
whatever
need it-
goes up above will go down below.
That's right.
Whatever
That's
goes,
okay. So
It hasn't been
the
filled
blank
in yet?
line, right,
it hasn't, it's
so,
to be filled in.
Right.
Okay, I mean, what's
What's
gonna,
chapter blank?
what's gonna be filled in?
the number, when it gets numbered within the bylaw.
Oh, okay.
So if it gets passed, basically, you can place it into the bylaw in order. And
Okay.
if it's bylaw 65-5, everything that has blank line, you put in.
I understand that, so my question is, can we put like, you know, pound sign, brackets, does that help make it a little clearer what these are?
That,
I don't think we can change.
If we can't change it, then we won't.
I don't think you
Fine,
can.
I'm fine, we'll explain it, someone will ask if they're confused.
yeah, I know.
Onward and upward.
I hate,
33.
yeah.
33 is also a citizen's petition, I think. It is what it is, I think.
Yep, it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me just explain. You see the bar there that indicates a change in the table?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That wasn't a physical change in the table, it was a change so that it didn't split, because one of the prints had it split over 2 different pages. You had nursing and community care, and then facilities was on a different page. So the change was to the table formatting. That's the reason the bar is, to answer that question. But then in the explanation of 33, I think, at the end of 33, the way we always do it is, when something requires the 2/3 passage, we always do it as a separate sentence. So I just said, you end with the zoning bylaw period, and then it's a new sentence that says, this article is the way we always put it. This article requires a 2/3 vote. It's just to be consistent with the previous one or,
Okay, got it.
and all of
No
those.
problem.
34, the lowercase thing is fine. Anything else on 34? 35.
34, you
Yeah, I
fix
did it,
that?
it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, so do you want me to change it or
Yeah,
not?
just change the lowercase.
Lowercase.
It's just case, it's,
I know, but
This
I
right
never
here.
got a definitive answer for town council, so I left it.
that's all right.
No, it's good,
It's just
That's
case. Yeah, change the
because we
name.
have to see if the town is
Yeah,
lowercase
yeah,
everywhere
makes sense
else.
to me, I just didn't wanna take
Yeah, we'll
too
take
much
that.
liberty.
Which one are we on now?
35.
35? 35, okay.
Donna
I would
Bristol.
suggest that the title, did you see my change in the title? Is it, yes, Donnie Bristol, Donnie Bristol Farm, yes, good. Transfer from
Fund
account
balance,
For fund balance
reserve
reserve
account is
account.
what the
Yes,
town
yeah,
account
She
said.
already
Okay,
did.
I like it, much better. Yep.
Okay, so what are we doing? Are we doing Dick's version versus the one?
No, we're doing what's in the not covered.
So I'll update where it says account number blank, I'm gonna put fund balance or transfer from fund balance reserve account and then get rid of the number sign.
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
Yeah.
So the changes that you made, Dick, above it, that sentence is different than what we have on Kelly's.
It is.
From available funds is just the standard terminology we used when we're doing a warrant article. To raise and assess or transfer from available funds, yada, yada, yada. I was just being consistent.
sounds good to me.
Any changes to everything?
36, free cash versus the tax rate.
And that number gets filled in when finally all the pieces of the
Unless
puzzle
I
are
have
So the
landed.
a
reason-
writer from,
The reason the article isn't changed in that case, because it's more general. The article doesn't have to specifically say where it's coming from or where it's going to. It's just to see if the town will vote blank. Your motion is where it gives us specificity.
Yep.
Sounds okay to me.
Okay, so Dick's changes are not incorporating at the end of 35? For Donnie Bristol?
35.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, he wrote that.
We never made it to that point.
so, yeah, oh, you haven't done any changes? Okay.
No.
So this article, it's easy if I read it. This article appropriates funds from a special reserve account established last year by the town accountant upon receipt of $100,000 land grant awarded from the Commonwealth. The fund also includes $5,190 of a $10,000 Essex County Greenbelt grant, the remainder of which funded project legal fees. The funding was set aside to offset the tax impact from the town's 2017 capital exclusion vote that allowed the acquisition of a conservation restriction. Oh, yes, okay. A conservation restriction on the parcels associated with the Donnie Bristol farm. Okay, so a couple of thoughts here. One is, if we have an amount that's not 400,000, but we talk about 400,000 in the explanation, you're gonna create all kinds of things. So that's why I added the thing about the greenbelt in there. It's a fact, but then you have to explain that greenbelt gave us $10,000, of which 5,000 is still in there, but what happened to the remainder? That's where it says the remainder was used for that. And then, this funding was set aside, okay, so the purpose of it was the acquisition of conservation, a conservation restriction on the parcels. Remember that there was the one by the house and then the main block of things. So I didn't want to try to explain that one is owned by the, still owned by the owner, but a conservation restriction, the other is this. So that's why I said just associated, parcels associated with Donnie Bristol Farm.
Just excuse me one second, because I'm lost here completely. I've got the one that I thought had Dick's comments, but those are in blue. But that's got all kinds of extra verbiage in black. Then I don't know where that came from. Then the one without anything is very succinct now.
You didn't change anything you said? In
But
this?
it looks
It looks
much,
like Kelly reduced her word.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, I don't think
Like
we're
a couple
following the
of,
track.
a couple of,
Dick inserted one sentence as I listened.
There's
I
a
just
whole
had
paragraph
two,
there.
two, I
You
just
have
had
two
two
sentences,
sentences.
and Dick inserted a third sentence in between those two
But then
sentences.
there's
Donnie
another.
Bristol is a relatively complicated transaction.
It is.
And the more detail we get, the more likely that inadvertently we won't be correct, or, but
We don't want to
need
confuse people.
Yeah, and we don't
We
need to
don't want to.
revisit the transaction itself. Well, all we're doing is taking the money and offsetting the taxes.
But as soon as you say 400,000 as an example, is that out of there now?
no, it's in there. I
As soon
love
as
that,
400,000
that was
is-
a question that we raised. We said, well, if the grant was 400,000, why are you transferring 405?
You can say the fund also includes 5190 of a $10,000 Essex County Greenbelt grant.
Yeah, the remainder funds from
The
the
major of it.
Yeah.
remainder of.
Right.
Great, that's a grant, that's fine.
All right. Simpler the better on that, I really
Yep.
think.
Agreed.
We're just adding
Okay, 36, did we do that yet? No?
No.
36, free cash to offset the
This is the
taxes.
same every year, isn't it?
Hopefully, this is not a problem.
We'll say yes.
This is not an issue.
Did you have yours in red, Dick, and questions? Was that something you were questioning?
No, I think that's,
That was pretty, oh, okay.
yeah, because we know we have the potential there.
Okay.
Okay, so we have in the defined sense a warrant. What do we?
I do have a question. The override question one, is there a comma missing between July 1st and 2019? They're written out in word form. So this is on page 19 of 19.
Last line.
Last line, should it be beginning July 1st, comma, 2019?
Absolutely.
We might be able to get a unanimous vote on that comment, John.
Wow.
There we go. Just wanted you guys to know, I'm paying attention.
Let's just flush this one out a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be a semicolon.
Big comma, small comma.
All right,
Discuss.
so I have a couple of hopefully relevant questions. One is, so what are we doing on the STM? So,
Have that here. Oh, one for you.
Is this a new one?
This,
Thank you.
is this, yes, this is sort of a moving target here.
Become extra.
Thanks. So let me just explain sort of the general format, forget about the numbering because that hasn't been decided yet. There's a couple of decisions that I'm looking or some direction from the board that I'd like to, some direction I'd like to get from you. What you have here are 3 pages which represent the bulk, or 4 pages, the meat of the framework for the special town meeting warrant. We are, right now, I am working with the town accountant to identify where the tailings is the word, or excess appropriations, where those are right now, which is why there's a blank where it says transfer from, because we're not exactly sure yet which line will be taking that, or accessing that funding. So the first couple of ones, I'll tell you, I can just walk you through the first ones that I know are going to be a part of this document, and then I'll show you what I've done just to prepare the other potential warrant articles
Okay.
that may or may not be a part of this.
Okay,
So Article first, I'm not aware of any reports for special town meeting, but that's pretty standard. Article second, we have one prior year bill. It was for $98.50. It came in at the end of the fiscal year. We did not find it until well after the books were closed, so we need a 9/10 vote at special
Jesus.
town meeting to pay this bill. So we just have to identify where the money is coming from. That should be the position.
the word vertical,
Again, there's a problem here.
I don't like the word vertical. Is it,
That's the name of the company.
is that all? Is it
Incorporated.
vertical Inc.?
No
Isn't it?
incorporated, no
It's
LLC.
vertical.
No, it's vertical.
Jesus.
Okay, a bill from
It
the
is
company, quote, vertical.
Or brackets, company, you wanna put that?
I think,
And
if you
How
just,
about we say the vertical company?
because,
I like the company, comma, vertical, make it a parenthetical with vertical in the commas. The company,
Yeah, I
comma,
think that makes it
vertical.
clear.
Company.
Put it in
Comma, vertical?
parentheses, put the name vertical after the word company.
Okay, all right.
in
That what
quotes
you
you're
said?
saying, right?
No, it was just commas, from the company, comma,
Comma,
Vertical.
vertical, okay, that's fine.
comma.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
vertical becomes a parenthetical.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine.
Excuse me. It's a cough and a sneeze at the same time, I think. Okay, so, budget transfers. I have, this is very generic as per tradition, but I also
Excuse me,
have.
just
Yeah.
as is the trend, I wanna go back one. Are they an IT company?
No,
No, it's a phone.
Communications.
Yeah, they're not an IT
Stinky
company
crappy
from Braintree?
no.
Okay.
You thought you had an ink or
Thought
something?
I had it.
You know, you'll find,
Good catch.
I'll try it.
turn your phone sideways.
Okay, sorry, I'll behave, go ahead.
Article third is our traditional budget amendments. These typically will come after we close the warrant and print the warrant. For your reference, however, I've started an actual list which is attached that sort of identifies the items that are still sort of in flux. They depend on available funding and a vote for a motion from FinCom. There are a couple of things on there we can talk about if we have time. But anyway, this stays very generic intentionally, and I usually prepare with the town accountant a memo that goes to, usually any last minute things. Typically, in the past, we've done this right the night of town meeting. This year, I'm really trying to get this ahead of the curve, so I want to try and do that memo sooner rather than later. Once we close the warrant, I'll come up with the list with the town accountant, and that way we can just leave any unknowns for that last night. So here's what I have for the list, and so there's a list in progress, basically, with regard to what those transfers might look like. But just so we can get the warrant printed and mailed, it's going to have this very basic generic language and a recommendation pending for review under Article 3. Any issues with that as worded?
No.
Okay. Article 6, This wording as in, well, let's forget about that, it's Article 6, it really just depends on
The next
highlighting.
article.
The next article, revoke solid waste enterprise fund, you might have seen that as rescind, I questioned the wording of rescind, specifically because of the wording for the one after, which is to rescind prior year bond authorization. After going back and forth with KP, we decided to change it, to update it, to revoke the solid waste enterprise fund, so all of this language here has been vetted by town council and updated by me. As early as this morning, we finalized that language, so hopefully that's and I also we had to locate with the town clerk the reference to when that was originally accepted. So that should cover our bases legally. Basically, we're closing out that account, is all we need to do, so we're revoking that. Any questions on that? Article 7, rescind prior year bond authorization, there was 1.6 million that was actually appropriated. Of that, 1.5 was authorized borrowing. So what we're trying to do is to rescind 530,000 of that 1.5 million in borrowing. So that's what this language, this has been composed and approved with town council. So this should be good as written. Unless there's any questions, I can go to the next one. Good with that?
You talked to Greg about that?
This would be.
He gave me basic language, and then I worked with that, and then went to town. So I've been going back and forth, and then the final version I'll send to him. But at this point, he usually just gives it to us for final legal review. Lets us do whatever we
This
need
is
to.
primarily because the project cost a heck of a lot than we thought it
Yes, yes, and so the next article is gonna spend a portion of that from retained earnings.
Yes.
So that's Article 8.
Yeah.
Or the
Next
next article is
Yeah.
Prospect Street and River Road repairs. Now, is River Road repairs, River Road repairs. Anyway, that's what I've entitled it, speak now, if you have a suggested different, I don't know if it should be road improvement repairs.
Well, just clarification, you're gonna do, Article 7 puts in a new water main.
The one thing-
Article 8 paves over the street when it's done.
My own sense would be,
Water main
I
replacement,
put repairs to Prospect Street and River Road,
road repairs too.
as opposed to putting repairs at the end. Repairs to, just because
It's
it's about
fine.
repairs, not particular streets.
Okay.
That's a minor thing.
And,
Repairs to Prospect Street and River Road.
Yes, so we'll just change the order.
So we're not trying.
And that's where 300,000 of that 500,000 goes.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, I would be careful on that. I don't think that's true.
What's
We
that?
we had authorization to borrow. I think 1.6 is what the authorization was. Anyway,
1.5.
was it 1.5? Okay.
Yeah.
But the bids came in at less than expected rate by $500,000. So
I
we don't
think I-
need that to do the
I
borrowing.
think I know where you're going here. Okay, go ahead.
So we don't need that money for the borrowing for what we had done here. We're not using any of that money, we just haven't,
We just haven't bor-
we haven't gone out to bond
You
to.
aren't gonna borrow it.
So in the future, we're not gonna have big payments, so that bigger payment. This is the fact that we have enough retained earnings to pay for the paving of the street.
That's what it is retained earnings.
Yeah, so
Says
it's,
so right there.
so it's not, now, the relationship, and I didn't ask this question, maybe this is between us for a second, is that the original bid may have included paving. We pulled it out, so the total bill was only $1 million. And we have enough money to do paving on our own,
We are gonna do it on our own.
but it's on our own, and it's being done out of the retained earnings, not out of a bond,
That's right.
which
Right.
was everybody's money. So there's no direct relationship between,
That's
or
why
before,
right.
the
this
last
one. We should
sentence,
be careful of that.
the last sentence on the bond decision authorization, then, it says, this article in conjunction with the approval of the following, no, it isn't conjunction with, it's, this article allows the water fund to, I don't see why that last sentence is relevant on article listed here as 7th, on page 2 of 7.
Alright.
I understand, but Dick's point has raised the question to me, that if retained earning and just plain rescinding bond authorization
It's,
Rescinding bond authorization doesn't put money in your pocket, it just
Right.
means you don't
Right.
spend it.
It doesn't.
So I would take that last sentence
I
out.
think you're right on. No, you're
This
right
one right
on.
here,
I
this
don't
article in
think-
conjunction
the last
with
sentence, 7? Or
You're
any-
right.
Article 7,
Seven?
take the last sentence out.
7.
Okay, just have it as
Seven.
operating companies, period.
This one,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and then also at 8.
And then
Because
eight will
it
take up the
says
last
it's linked to
sentence.
7.
yeah, exactly.
That's fine, we'll just shorten that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
It makes it clear there, so.
Yeah.
Unless I misunderstand, I think you're
Oh, I-
on board. What
And
I
I
said.
think no
I
question,
think
I think, yeah. we're good.
You're right.
And simplify it that more.
Good, good.
Okay, so, let me see, all right, so flip past,
Now, on 8, what do we do? Take out the last,
The last sentence,
last
because
sentence.
we're not
Yes.
linking the articles, so
this
we've taken
article is
out,
linked, we're taking that out.
the linkage language is gone in both.
I just did a cut and paste from what Greg gave me, but that's
Yep.
fine.
LinkedIn
Okay.
is mine, but not in ours.
All right, page 5 of 7, what I've done here is just outline what is sort of the moving pieces. Let's call this the as funds may be available section. They haven't been voted by the FinCom or discussed in any particular detail, but I wanted to update you on sort of where things are. The things that I do know about are the police CAD training for rec and fire CAD. So there's additional training that is necessary for us to, for police and fire. We're doing a new CAD system at the rec center. In order to implement that in a timely manner, we're going to have to appropriate additional training funds to make sure that we do that in time. Actually, I think we're planning to do that over the course of maybe this summer. They want to implement the new CAD system by September. So here's the deal, is we need to find the money this year to pay for the training so we can implement it on time. On the other side of things though, the rec center has agreed to basically give us some of our assessment back from the cherry sheet. But we won't see that money until we get free cash a year from now. So basically it's a reimbursable expense, but we need to find the money in this fiscal year to pay for the training during this fiscal year so that we can implement on time. But in lieu of the fact that we didn't have the opportunity to appropriate money at last year's town meeting, they're basically saying, if you can find a way to pay for it, we'll give it back to you in a reduced assessment for FY19.
and that goes into free cash next year.
Yes.
This is good. The state was tough. They were not, they could not write us a check. It would have created all kinds of
Yes,
political.
we've been through that.
This is a very nice way to work it out. Thank you.
So we
Very
basically, yeah. So
Reimbursed.
we'll get
That they can do.
Much cleaner,
$19,000.
much cleaner.
Cleaner.
And they'll probably do
Excellent.
that at the same time that they're gonna get rid of our assessment
Yep.
for
That's good.
FY20.
Yeah.
Simpler.
So we have to come up with this money though,
Yeah.
if we want to be
Yeah,
reasonable.
but we will, we have it.
And so, is it, okay.
So I have to work with the accountant to get the specific line items of where this is coming from. But primarily, the available funding that I'm aware of, the source of that is primarily with our credits from Maya, safety credits, early pay credits, our training that we've done, we get credits for that, we get discounts throughout the year. At the conference, they announce participation credits. In addition to that, we also have a one-time allocation of about $65,000 because when I renegotiated the 111F safety premium, we got a reduction. And so that came after we approved the budget. So that $65,000 allows us some room for some of the capital purchases that we would have paid for or attempted to pay for under the capital plan. However, because they didn't fit the $300,000 allocation, they sort of went off to the side. So these are the items that are off to the side that I'm aware of right now. And those items are the fire, the protective gear, the turnout gear. That was originally in the plan for $40,000 for this year. However, after talking with the chief, she feels that $20,000, now that everyone's been outfitted with one full set, that we can go to $20,000 this year and then $20,000 for next year. So we haven't changed the original allocation, we've just expanded the phase-in of it. So the next piece is the public safety radio repeater and receivers. This is so that we can have this is really having to do with the radio tower and our ability to have non-disrupted communication